The Red Sea, a vital waterway in global trade and shipping, is currently embroiled in a crisis that threatens to disrupt the flow of international commerce. The Red Sea crisis has been marked by increased attacks on shipping vessels, linked primarily to the escalating conflict between Israel and Hamas. These attacks have caused considerable anxiety among shipping companies and energy markets, raising fears of a prolonged disruption in one of the world's busiest maritime routes. The Red Sea's strategic significance lies in its role as a conduit for much of the world's trade and energy supplies. It is a key passageway that connects the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean Sea through the Suez Canal, handling about 12% of global trade. This crisis could potentially lead to widespread implications, including shipping delays and increased costs for goods, thereby contributing to global inflation and economic instability. Before we move forward, click that like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. This channel will keep you updated on the most intriguing videos on economic topics all around the world. The ongoing crisis in the Red Sea is intricately linked to the Israel-Hamas conflict. This conflict, which has seen numerous escalations over the years, recently intensified with Hamas military actions against Israel. In response to Israel's military offensive in Gaza, the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have increased their attacks in the Red Sea, targeting vessels with connections to Israel. The Houthis claim these attacks are a form of retaliation against Israel for its actions in Gaza. This escalation in the Red Sea region reflects the broader geopolitical dynamics of the Middle East, where regional conflicts often have far-reaching impacts. The connection between the Israel-Hamas conflict and the Red Sea disruptions exemplifies how localized military actions can have significant implications for international trade and economic stability, particularly in crucial maritime routes like the Suez Canal. This waterway is essential for global trade, and any disruption can have ripple effects on the global economy. The Suez Canal is a critical artery in global trade, linking the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea and providing the shortest sea route between Europe and the lands lying around the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. The crisis in the Red Sea poses a direct threat to the safety and security of vessels transiting through this vital waterway. Increased attacks and military activities in the region have raised concerns about the risk of traversing the Suez Canal, potentially leading to disruptions in one of the world's busiest maritime routes. The canal handles about 12% of global trade, and any disruption in its operation can have substantial ripple effects on global supply chains and trade flows. Delays in transit through the canal can lead to longer delivery times and increased costs for shippers and consumers. In response to these risks, some shipping companies are considering rerouting their vessels around the southern tip of Africa via the Cape of Good Hope to avoid the Red Sea. This route, while safer in terms of conflict risk, is significantly longer and more costly. The shift to alternative routes increases fuel consumption and transit times, leading to higher transportation costs. This, in turn, impacts the pricing of goods and commodities, contributing to global inflationary pressures. The longer journey around Africa adds approximately 7 to 10 days to transit times, depending on the origin and destination, which can disrupt just-in-time supply chains and lead to shortages of goods. As a result, disruptions due to the crisis have a direct impact on the supply chain. As of last week, a total value of $105 billion in cargo from 158 vessels, carrying approximately 2.1 million cargo containers were affected, leading to soaring cargo prices. Logistics managers received quotes for ocean freight rates at $10,000 per 40-foot container for shipping from Shanghai to the UK. This is a significant increase from mid-December's rates, which were $1,900 for a 20-foot container and $2,400 for a 40-foot container. Additionally, current trucking rates in the Middle East have more than doubled. The Red Sea is also a crucial route for the transport of energy commodities. Energy and shipping companies, including BP, are avoiding the Red Sea route, causing delays and extra costs. This has contributed to an 8% increase in Brent crude prices since mid-December, now above $79 per barrel. 5 of the largest shipping firms announced they would redirect their container ships away from the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the strategic waterway through which ships must pass on their way to the Suez Canal. Following the announcement, traffic through the Red Sea dropped by 35%. Commerce hasn't been blocked completely, since most ships can opt for the longer but safer route around Africa. But the Houthis have increased the cost of shipping globally, imposing additional costs to commerce at a time when trouble at the Panama Canal has already made shipping more complicated and central banks worry about a new inflationary spike. If the Houthi blockade continues, the costs to consumers and the impact on local states will be considerable. The alternative route around the Cape of Good Hope adds 2 weeks and up to $4 per barrel in costs. In the event that the Red Sea is closed long-term, Europe and states on the Mediterranean will bear the brunt of the damage. Some countries in North Africa, such as Tunisia and Algeria, are also particularly vulnerable as they do most of their Asian trade through the Suez Canal. Israel, the Houthis' intended target, has suffered already as it's seen traffic through its southern port of Eilat come to halt, though the port's relatively small size has made the overall impact fairly manageable. The big loser to a closed Red Sea is Egypt, which depends on transit fees through the Suez Canal for as much as 1/4 of its currency earnings. Already under strain from the humanitarian situation in Gaza and a moribund economy, Egypt's authoritarian president Abdel Fattah el-Sisi may face major financial pressure if traffic through the canal slows. A long-term disruption of traffic through the Red Sea will impact energy prices, particularly for consumers in Europe. About 1/5 of the traffic through the Suez Canal is oil, either on ships or sent across Egypt via the Sumed pipeline, with the total volume of crude oil and refined products shipped either way at nearly 9 million barrels per day, roughly 12% of total seaborne trade. A complete halt to oil shipments through the canal would be a significant disruption and would likely boost crude oil prices in 2024. To mitigate these ocean shipping challenges, European shippers are increasingly turning to air transport for moving their products. According to air shipping company Freightos, there has been a recent surge in air freight prices, with rates for China to Northern Europe shipments rising 13% from $3.95 per kilogram to $4.45 per kilogram. As this situation prolongs, more shippers, starting in Europe and extending to the U.S. East Coast, are expected to switch from ocean to air freight, particularly for high-value items like electronics and fashion apparel, to mitigate the longer lead times and associated costs. Shipping companies are faced with the challenge of either implementing an indeterminate waiting period or exploring costlier alternative routes, given the complex current situation. Logistics executives have expressed that if such conditions persist for over a month, inflationary pressures will become apparent in the supply chain and ultimately impact consumer prices. The ongoing crisis in the Red Sea requires concerted diplomatic efforts and strategic conflict resolution measures. The future outlook of the crisis largely depends on the effectiveness of these initiatives. International diplomacy is key to resolving the Red Sea crisis. This involves negotiations and dialogue among the primary stakeholders, including the countries directly affected, regional powers, and global entities like the United Nations. Efforts could focus on establishing a ceasefire agreement, particularly between the Houthi rebels and the coalition forces, to reduce hostilities in the region. Another critical step is the engagement of maritime security measures to safeguard the shipping lanes. This could include international naval patrols and tighter security protocols for vessels transiting through the Red Sea. Economic and humanitarian aid to conflict-affected areas, particularly in Yemen, is essential to address the underlying issues fueling the crisis. Experts suggest that without effective diplomatic intervention, the crisis could escalate, further endangering global shipping routes and regional stability. The potential for an expanded conflict or a prolonged disruption in the Red Sea could have long-term global economic repercussions, emphasizing the urgency of resolution. On a more optimistic note, successful diplomatic negotiations could lead to a stabilization of the region, ensuring the safety of the maritime routes and a reduction in the economic impact on global trade. We hope this video gave you an insight into the ongoing complex situation occurring in the Red Sea and its massive impact on the global economy. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth global economic content.